Welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Electric Vibe. I'm flying solo on this one just for a brief uh, episode. This is going to be a review of mainly and then some updates of upcoming episodes with J. David Silva, my smooth voice brother from another mother. I wanted to come on here to talk mainly about the 50th anniversary edition remixed from the ground up, so to speak, of Judas Priest's debut album that came out 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, in early September of 1974. Judas Priest released their first album, Rocka Rolla. And, the story has been told numerous times, but in case you're not even in the Judas Priest universe or know nothing about their history, this album wasn't their favorite thing to happen. They were a new band, untried in the studio, recorded off hours, late hours, because they were on a budget. They were with a record label called Gull Records, which they did their first two albums, this one and Sad Wings of Destiny. Well, long story short, they never got the rights back until recently to this album. They've always been disappointed in how this album sounded. And after a long time, they finally got the rights back to it. And the albums are part of Reach Music, a company called Reach. And they got their longtime producer, who's always been involved in their live mixes of concert videos, concert films that they've put out over the years, that Tom Allom. Tom Allom, of course, has produced for other artists like Kix back in the day. He also produced for Crocus, Screaming in the Night's got that airy, reverb drenched classic song Screaming in the Night, which just absolutely loved that song. Probably my favorite, one of my favorite Crocus songs. Uh, and of course, he was part of their long tenure in the 80s. From He came in the end of the 70s with them, and Unleashed in the East had his fingerprints all over that one in terms of mixing. Of course, fans call it Unleashed in the Studio because Rob Halford famously had to redo the vocals live in the studio because his voice was shot in their tour of Japan. So, but then onwards, they did a whole almost 8 year stretch working with him on British Steel, Point of Entry, of course, their biggest selling album, Screaming for Vengeance, then on to Defenders of the Faith, one of my favorite albums, and then went on to produce a couple more albums with them, Turbo, the Live Priest live album recorded in Texas, and then the last album that he would work on them in the studio until much later, excuse me, uh, Ram It Down. And they felt that they needed just a fresh set of ears, I think, after having a good long stretch with Tom. And they got Chris Sangarides to do Painkiller, and then hosts of other producers when they got back reunited. The years with Ripper, they self produced, but on and on and on. Tom came back into the fold uh, and worked with Andy Sneap, who co-produced their Firepower album, really a great comeback album for them. Redeemer of Souls was the first one with Richie Faulkner, but I think the production, we can all agree, was kind of spotty. It definitely needed a different production on direction. Firepower, and of course the new album Invincible Shield, which just mostly has Andy Sneap's hand in it, but production wise. But he did do Sons of Thunder and I think one other track on the new album. But they brought back Tom to remix the original tapes, and fortunately, those were actually well preserved for decades. Over the years, if you're a Priest fan, you know that that album has had a ton of reissues, some with interviews with original member John Hinch and Alan Moore and what have you. And it just rehash after rehash after rehash, and had both albums on rehashed CD reprints and what have you. There was the Hero compilation, which adds both tracks from Rocka Rolla and Sad Wings of Destiny. And long story short, eh, you know, just trying to make a buck off it. Well, finally, they got the rights were relinquished from the original owner, and uh, let me play a little bit of it. I will say for me, I'll say less about it. Let's listen to the original mix of Rocka Rolla. So, let me back up. Okay, so here is the 50th anniversary remix version of Rocka Rolla. Okay, I don't know about you, but right away I heard varying differences. Particularly, I think the star of the remix show here is the way that Tom Allom has remixed not only just the vocals, but really the drums in particular. And really, there are places all over here where there's a lot more air and space to the mix on these songs. I really appreciate what he's done with Rocka Rolla. You know, you've got one for the road, winter. I tell you the one that really got me. Let's listen to One for the Road. I'm gonna put on the original version of One for the Road. Let's see if I can get that queued up. You're gonna hear the difference in the drums. All right, so that's the original. I'm trying to play just 30 seconds, trying to avoid any copyright infringement. But this is to promote the album for people to go out there and buy it. I definitely want to get this on vinyl. This is definitely worth having this album properly remixed. And everybody was involved. KK Downing, there's an interview with him on, what's this website here? Songwriter, American Songwriter, The Craft of Music. Well, he's not American, but hey, Brian Reisman, credit to his article that he did, and I tell you, you can hear the difference. Let's hear One for the Road now. Remix. Okay, stop right there. There is much more air in the drums and what have you. The ballads on here too, I tell you, really have. Um, let's do this. All let's do Winter. Let's go for it. I already heard you. We already heard you. Let's go to Winter. It's the original mix. The guitars sound so tiny. Yeah. Okay, let's listen to the version that that he remixed. Already the spacing. Oh, bring those guitars out, right?
Got no silver in my pockets.
Okay, so trying to give a couple of examples here. Please go out and listen to this. Listen to the album the way it was originally mixed, if you must, and then listen to his version. The only one I think was it Never Satisfied. What was the one that I was just like, I thought there was too much treble in one of the mixes, and never might have been Never Satisfied. Um, but in general, I think the way he brought out the drums on this and the vocals, but everything really there was more air to the mixes, more space, and but the levels of the instruments were brought up much better. I guess he's using whatever cutting edge technology now. I mean, there's so many DAW digital audio workstation software. He's probably using the latest and greatest, what have you. You know, and Tom Allom, I'm sure, has seen every iteration of recording technology. I think that they did a great job with this album's got more punch. It sounds more like a Judas Priest album had Tom Allom been back there in the early '70s to produce it for them. I'm excited to see what they do with Sad Wings of Destiny, which they're definitely prouder of the mixes that they did because Priest basically had an engineer and they produced that one largely themselves. And you see, Rob Halford talks about that in his book Confess, and KK Downing also talks briefly about that as well. So they were much prouder of that mix. But we'll see what happens in the future. So yeah, so I definitely recommend going out. It's a 39 40 minute record. The other note I'll give is that you will hear at the very end of songs, the songs do end, you'll hear like a little bit of studio, okay, boys, that's it, let's wrap it up type chatter at the end of a couple of the songs. So you can definitely tell that they've added just a little of that so we can hear that for ourselves because the album apparently was recorded live in the studio, not a lot of overdubs, but the other and I do want to mention also you hear a lot more guitar that you didn't hear in the original mix. You also hear Rob Halford's guitar, or excuse me, guitar, harmonica playing, and especially in songs like Cheater, harmonica parts that we, because they listed harmonica on the album itself, and you're like, okay, where? So you do, especially on songs like Cheater, you hear him getting in touch with his inner blues harp player mode there, and there's some tasty harp licks that Rob does, mostly in blues and which is the classic way to go for a lot of bands. So taking a cue out of like guys like Robert Plant, who certainly was a master on the blues harmonica licks and really borrowed a lot from black culture, as many British bands did back at that time. Uh, so that's definitely noticeable, but it's definitely worth having a comparison and contrast on both those. And I'm glad all the members of the band were involved in this, including KK, that they've all got their seal of approval on this. So yeah, so kudos to Reach Music and kudos to the band for finally getting what they want after 50 years being able to remix this album. So the next order of business, you ask, you say, we're gonna change the cover here. So upcoming, Jay and I are gonna speak to. First of all, we're gonna release the interview that we did with Harlan Hucky Austin, who was an executive protector, also known as a bodyguard for Prince for many years, was under the discipleship of Big Chick Huntsberry, and worked on the Purple Rain tour up through about 91, maybe Rock and Rio, I believe, and then left after that. And he's going to talk about all kinds of things: executive protection, at the home, for yourselves, for your families, his life and his background. He certainly has a lot, and how to approach these folks who worked under Prince. And the message there is to get to know the person and not just ask them what was Prince like, what did Prince like to do. Get to know these people because they have interesting lives all on their own. So I'm going to throw up the image for that. So be on the lookout for Jay and I to do that. This is AI art, and I want to give credit to Hucky. This is AI art that he did himself. Um, and so you'll look at Jay and I are going to both have that image on there. And then upcoming tonight, later tonight, Jay and I are going to record with um, Jarrell Mason. Jarrell Mason has been a podcaster for a while now. He has a wonderful series out there in the podcasting stream universe on all platforms called Beyond the Album Cover. So we're going to give shout out to him. And let me give the uh, virtual background here for that. It's so many different. Here we go. And this is Jarrell Mason's. So if you look online, look for Beyond the Album Cover. And we're going to just have a freewheeling time with him later this evening. So look for that episode. Not on the Electric Vibe podcast. We'll certainly share it, but that's going to be on his podcast. Both Jay and I are going to be interviewed about how we met. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot of music. But Jarrell's had some many interesting guests on, man. He's had uh, Kyle West, producer Kyle West, who did I remember him, the first I'll Be Sure album. And who can forget Night and Day back in the day? I mean, I'll Be Sure's debut album was just in effect mode was just fantastic production. And he's talked to Sugar Steve from Amir Questlove Thompson's podcast, Questlove Supreme. He's had a whole host of other DJ Yella. So we'll look forward to speaking to him tonight. But that's all I have for you, folks. If you like what you hear, hit the like and subscribe button for more content. Be on the lookout for us on other streaming platforms, a new logo. Eventually, I'm going to have a theme song up there as well that I'm working on. And to get that all done, it's just having the time to do it, working full time. So that's it. Hope you folks have a great rest of your day. And as Jay says, I always say a lifting tide rises all boats. And when the universe knocks, you got to answer that door. Peace.